and welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for yet another incredible show with today's extra special guest, the fabulous Yvonne Coburn. Hello, Yvonne.
Hello, Michelle. Lovely to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you on the show. And for those of you who aren't quite as aware of Yvonne's work, Yvonne is the CEO of the Creating We Institute. She's an executive coach and a leadership development specialist. She has done so many incredible things with organisations like the University of Sydney and KPMG, and also more recently with Palliative Care Australia. I know I said Palliative Care Australia. I shouldn't laugh. Yvonne, how on earth did you come to be doing so much incredible work in that leadership and coaching and development space?
Thanks, Michelle. Well, I guess to answer your question, really, my whole life has been leading me to this direction. I started off as a lawyer, really wanting to work in the family law area to really help others, and moved for a period into local government, again as a politician, to try and change the lives of others. And for more than 12 years now, I've been an executive leadership coach. And it's really been about empowering other people, helping people find their greatness, helping people find their leadership skills, helping them understand what their unique journey is all about. So it's been a kind of natural move in that direction. Very recently, I was appointed as the National Champion for Palliative Care Australia. And that really came about because 4 years ago, my mother passed away, and I was actually really quite distressed about, I guess, the lack of clarity for me around what was available in palliative care. And I made a promise at that time that I would do whatever I could to bring my leadership skills to really help others who were affected the way that I was. And so recently I was appointed a National Champion for Palliative Care Australia to be able to really provide some information and guidance and policy advice to others.
Wow, what an interesting and courageous background. You know, working as a lawyer, and I imagine being a successful lawyer with quite a lucrative career, and I wouldn't say easy, but a more comfortable way of living, I guess, than being a politician, because being a politician, I know many people might think it's quite glamorous in some ways, but it's also a lot of hard work and quite ruthless and nasty at times. All the way, it's kind of like the opposite of moving into the leadership and the empowerment space, and now really championing causes like palliative care and being the national champion for them. Yvonne, do you think you've also always had, I mean, starting your career in the early days as a lawyer, do you think you've kind of always had this calling to support others, or the underdog even, maybe?
Yes, definitely. It has been a calling. I was influenced early on in my career by a number of mentors who said to me, the greatest legacy that we can leave is really knowing that we have helped others live the best life that they can live. And I've not forgotten that, and it's been my guiding light throughout my career. It's all about how do we actually help this world become a better place. And so whatever I can do in terms of bringing compassion and understanding to that is what I'm really guided and motivated by. I was also really fortunate to have a great mentor in Judith Glaser, who pioneered work in the conversational intelligence space about 30 years ago in New York. And her premise was the quality of our conversations really enhances relationships. It builds connections, it builds trust, and it changes the world. So I use a lot of her work in my work, and also in the work that I do in the compassionate palliative care space.
Wow. And you know, that compassion and the understanding, it comes across so clearly as you speak now, and that conversational intelligence, of course, from the fabulous Judith Glaser. We've you know, in a sense, having a successful career in the legal area, a successful career then as a politician, and now a successful career in that leadership coaching space, and in a sense entering the fourth career as a national champion for palliative care. With all of these different successes and achievements, that so incredible achievements that you've had, Yvonne, what do you think you would say success now means to you today?
Success to me is really about making a difference in the lives of others. It's about creating ripple effects that create better systemic changes. And it's a feeling that people are sharing information, that they're building sustainable connections and networks of support. And for me now, it's all about making sure that there are better discussions around challenges relating to death and dying and palliative care, and also providing greater leadership in that space as well, making sure that everybody's involved. So if I'm successful, then I want to make sure that others around me are successful, and particularly in the health and palliative care space right now. I want to do whatever I can to enhance their success as well as my own.
And isn't that a beautiful way of describing it? I really hear that success to you means being successful in helping others and in making a difference. And at this point in time for you, it's working through and being a part of the Palliative Care Australia journey, where helping with your incredible leadership skills and understanding of how not just leadership, but the politics behind leadership and all of these other elements that are important to how leaders and teams and organisations work, helping all of that is what now you see as success in many ways. The more success you have around you, the more you feel you're a success, which is absolutely beautiful. Given that, you know, you're onto your third, some could even say your fourth career in a way, what do you think are some of the suggestions that you have for people around how they can create some of the habits or the tools or the tips even for creating a successful mindset?
Thanks, Michelle. So I think that applying many of the principles of conversational intelligence and compassionate leadership are really helpful. So I think 4 elements that I refer to quite often are, firstly, paying attention to others, being present and really noticing what their needs are. So attending to the needs of others. The second is really understanding.
Sorry, just before you go through, and this is going to be a fabulous list, but attending to the needs of others, what do you really mean by that? Do you have an example you could share with us?
Sure. So sometimes we meet with people and we may actually be a little distracted. So I was in a meeting the other day and I noticed that the person that I was in the meeting with was really checking his mobile phone. He was distracted. He wasn't present. And so I actually said in that meeting, I think it would be a really good idea if all mobile phones were switched off, and we can actually really be present to each other and have a much better understanding of what each of us is really looking for in this particular meeting. And that happens so often, you know, in our corporate lives, in our family lives. There are so many distractions now. So being mindful, being present, I think is really, really important. So
it's a great example you use. I even saw Simon Sinek the other day demonstrating this when he was speaking on stage, and he was talking about how he asked the audience, how do you feel? Oh yeah, I do have it here. And he was saying, you know, how do you feel when I'm sitting here talking to you like this? And how do you feel like when I'm sitting here talking to you like this? So he wasn't looking at his phone or engaging with it, but they could see that he had his phone with him. And there was a distinct reaction. He was talking to that reaction that you so beautifully described. that when people are on their phone or on their laptop or distracted in some way and they're not completely present, then how can you attend to their needs, or how can they even share their needs with you when their energy in many ways is distracted into a number of different areas?
That's exactly right, Michelle. And these days we have so many distractions. And that leads neatly to the next point, which is really about understanding through listening. So listening to connect to people. Often we have our own preconceived notions before we start a conversation. But if you have a mindset that's curious, that's really thinking about what the other person is saying, it provides a richness to that conversation. It really provides an opportunity to connect at a much deeper level. So I would really, really recommend listening to connect.
I know, and we'll come to this a little bit later, some more of your work in the palliative care space, and I'm so sorry about the loss of your mother. But I guess whether it's a loss of a job, which many people are going through nowadays, and that grieving cycle associated with it, or the loss of a relationship, divorces, etc., or the loss of a physical person. One of the things that people so desperately need at that point isn't for people to fix things, but for them to be listening and deeply listening, so that they have that sense of feeling heard. Do you have any suggestions, especially with your Palliative Care Australia training, about how people, when they might be with somebody going through that kind of deep pain, and either they're feeling uncomfortable or they're trying to fix things rather than just be there with them? Do you have any suggestions? I'm sure you've got lots of great suggestions. What could you explain? Because I'm not saying it very well myself, but how could you explain to people some really simple but fabulous suggestions?
Yeah. So it's true, Michelle. I mean, often when you are going through a palliative care situation or even in grief, the thing that people need the most is a supportive ear, someone that is empathetic, someone that is there to really mirror the other person's feelings. So they don't necessarily want someone that's going to provide all the solutions or the answers to problems at all. It's really giving that person the opportunity to vent, to rant, to express their emotions. And being there in that way is the greatest gift that you can give to somebody in this space.
Yeah, and I speak to many people, unfortunately, again, at this point in time, who are being retrenched in some way, shape, or form, or finding it difficult after many months of looking for a new role. And it is that there's that sense that they just want to be heard, because they're not being heard in other situations or in other ways. And it's not about fixing the situation for them. Do you think, though, with palliative care in particular, that being that supportive ear and being there for somebody has even more of a special meaning during that time of difficulty for them?
Yes, because often what happens when we are in a situation of extreme stress, grief, we have a reaction that is more of an amygdala reaction. We often go into freeze or flight or fright, and we're not able to really access, if you like, the prefrontal cortex of our brains, where we make the most effective decisions. When we're operating in that way, everything really shuts down. So having somebody that's going to provide a level of calm, somebody that is just there to listen and support, will actually help people make much better decisions in relation to their own lives or the lives of those that they're caring for. So it really helps at a I guess, neuroscientific level as much as anything else. We're finding that having that opportunity to be comforted and supported in a non-judgmental, in a really present way is really, really important. And It's also about building connections with each other. So how do we do that? How do we actually build trust with each other? And that's often about being really transparent. It's about thinking about the relationship that we're forming with the other person, understanding the other person, sharing stories with the other person, and often testing assumptions as well.
I really like that point about building those connections, because I recognize in my own life and with clients that we work with, when they're walking through those difficult times and sharing the stories and sharing some very, very difficult stories about their lives in some way, that have, in a sense, that gold that you can see the resilience and the strength and the courage, but they're not necessarily in the space because they're in that fight or flight, so they don't see it within themselves at that point in time. So you're holding for them, and you're building that connection because you can see the beauty in them that they don't necessarily see at that point in time themselves. So I think that this is, really important and such gold for that person that you're supporting going through that palliative or deep challenge of some sort, is as actually somebody that just needs to feel felt and held and supported, and building those connections with them is gold for you. Because I years ago had somebody talk about emotions, and they talked about it as a bandwidth, and the more, in a strange way, but it seems to be true, the more you're kind of placed outside of your comfort zone and stretch that elastic band, then you kind of keep building your resilience and your ability to feel at a deeper and deeper level. And being with people in a palliative situation, or when they've gone through some sort of difficulty in their own lives or in your own lives, you being the one to share, I think that again builds that emotional and resilience elastic band in a way that really builds some of those strong building blocks for your ongoing success.
It's true, Michele. And just also in terms of creating an environment that's really supportive for families, carers, as well as the person going through palliative care, ensuring that we have better access to trained health support workers in this space. So for those carers to understand the importance of, I guess, shared empathy in a sense, and making sure that we bring the best leadership to those spaces, helping those teams understand, those teams of carers understand that they're all working for the same outcome, if you like, that they are aligned in their commitment to better palliative care, is a really important thing. And I think, the more that we can encourage our health system to support that kind of caring, the better it will be for all those affected.
Yeah, my family in many ways use humour to deal with difficult situations. So we actually found it very funny when my mum was passing, and she was moved back home to spend her final days, and then she didn't die. And so because she didn't die, they came to take back her palliative bed and give her a normal bed. Now, this was, again, a highly stressful, everybody's, in that very much amygdala fight or flight state. And it just became funnier and funnier because we were holding the palliative care bed hostage until they gave us a bed of similar quality. But it got to that point where we were having insane conversations in stressful situations with those carers who wanted to do the right thing, but the system and the processes meant that we'd had the bed delivered. So of course we had to give up the bed that we already had, the palliative care bed we had. And again, they were quite confused when we said, well, no, we're not going to do that because we need to wait until you give us an equal bed, etc. We were making lots of jokes about it, but unfortunately, not everybody copes with things by having it as funny. And so especially today with so many other stresses that people face just in everyday life, supporting the staff and supporting the leaders with better training to understand, well, if situations like that and things happen, then you don't kind of keep putting the family in an adversarial fight situation. You go, oh, okay, this has happened, we'll fix it and we'll come back to you when it's fixed. Not argue with them about taking away the bed.
Exactly. And, you know, there is a much higher risk of real conflict happening in that kind of stressful situation. So what can we do to support bringing that level of conflict down? You know, how do we act as a we to really support families to actually create better conversations, to really help support them? And all of these compassionate leadership principles are really helpful around that too. So I'm finding that I'm able to incorporate, if you like, some of my professional work in this space to help change or make the systemic change that we need.
And I think one of the important questions to ask somebody like yourself with such a wealth of skills and a toolkit bag that is full of, you know, fabulous ideas, because especially in the palliative space, but we could be talking about domestic violence or any kind of violence or this or that, a lot of really highly emotive areas that also, unfortunately, are typically under-resourced. So the people that are working in those fields may want to do the right thing and give us the right bed, but actually they you know, have got 20 people with just as urgent a problem. What sort of suggestions do you have for people, that especially people working in those types of spaces, but it could be anybody in a job now where half of their colleagues are actually fired and they're being asked to do that work as well? What sort of suggestions do you have for people for keeping a positive, or keeping, you know, not going so much into fight or flight that they can't kind of pull themselves out? How can they empower themselves in those very difficult situations?
So I think a lot of the self-care principles apply, making sure that you take time out to get in touch with nature, for example. Going for a walk out in the fresh air is really helpful. Some people find mindfulness exercises really helpful. Some people enjoy yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi. That form of movement can be really helpful. Meditation is something that I do on a regular basis. And I think, again, it's very much about what do we need to really take the time to look after ourselves, because if we're not looking after ourselves, how can we possibly look after anybody else? It's also finding the things that we love, the things that bring us joy and meaning. What are our interests? What are our hobbies outside of work, outside of caring? Are we giving ourselves enough space and permission to do those things? So all of those things I think are really important. And quite honestly, just making the time to connect to friends and family, you know, go and see a show, go and have some humor, anything that can actually release some of the tension.
Such important and fabulous suggestions, Yvonne. I couldn't agree more. It comes back to whatever the activity might be, it comes back to that self-care, and to in those times of difficulty with a lot going on, when you're standing guard over that palliative care bed, actually taking time out and going, okay, I'm gonna, and this is some of what I did with myself at the time as well. I went and had dinner with friends that came out to see me. I would go out and do different activities. I think that exactly what you described, the meditation, the mindfulness acts, going for a walk in nature, whatever it is, that finding out that what it is for you that can, in a sense, be like a reset button. and help you to take a moment away, or an hour away, or a day away, and then come back into it. So in management, there's a lot of talk of, putting things into a parking lot. And I think that this concept's really good, because it's not like you stop feeling the pain with the palliative care, but you can actually put it into a parking lot and go down to the beach to watch a sunset or a sunrise, just to kind of reconnect with that life in those very challenging times. And not everybody, I shouldn't say challenging times so much, but not everybody has that, but it is a time of great change. And so still taking that time out to kind of mark those times and mark those moments, I think can be really helpful.
And
I was just going to say, I keep noticing you've got that lovely orange heart on your jacket. What does that mean? Does it mean anything?
Yes, so thanks for asking, Michelle. We have just launched this Orange Heart. Palliative Care Australia has launched it as part of Palliative Care Week. It's universally known as a symbol of care and friendship. It's orange because it's burning bright. It's reminding us of the need to connect with others, to share that friendship, to share that love with each other. So it's really heartwarming and encouraging, and I'm very excited about it. We recently had a screening of a film called Live the Life You Please, which is really an outstanding film that I would recommend everybody watch. Very much about how do we live our best lives, and how do we actually access the best kind of palliative care that we possibly can. And so this heart was really very much about bringing that love and support to others. And we're actually creating amazing deaf cafes as well as part of this initiative.
Wow, I love that. I've been joking, and I hope people realise I was actually very upset when my mum was dying. So the joking about the bed was just an example of my way of coping. But I love this concept. If there had been a deaf cafe around at the time, I would have been there as well, talking about the process with other people that were going through that process. I see, because I work in the technology space so much, I see how much people are wanting to reconnect to in person and be with others as they go through whatever stage of life journey that they're in. And so I think having a deaf cafe and deaf week and everything is, really powerful and very, very timely. And I actually like the orange, because as soon as I started talking about sunrises and sunsets, and you mentioned it was orange, I was like, oh, yes, it reminds me of the sunrises and sunsets, which for me down the beach really connects back in that with that resetting my buttons and knowing that, whatever's going on, the sun will come up in the morning, and whatever's going on, the sunset will be absolutely beautiful again.
It's true. Nature is a great healer, Michelle, and reminding ourselves of that is so important. And orange is also the colour of creativity. So bringing a creative response to what can often be a very black and white and dull environment, but how do we actually engage in life in the face of death, actually?
And there is so much more we could talk about, because there is so much life when you're in that death process and around that death process. But Yvonne, if people were wanting to find out more about deaf cafes and yourself and the leadership work that you're doing, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Thanks, Michelle. Well, they can get hold of me through my LinkedIn account, but also my website, which is creatingwe.com.au. And I'd be more than happy to give them information about the deaf cafes and, in fact, all of the work that we're doing.
Oh, wonderful. And given the topics that we've kind of spoken through today, and going back to the different careers and the different forms that success that you've had, Eva, I'm still fascinated by, if you were to give your younger self some advice, what might that advice be?
So that's a really, really interesting question, Michele, and I had to think long and hard about that. I think it's about really getting in touch early on with what your unique skills are. And so if you become aware early on of what your unique skills are, you can use those skills to influence others, to connect more deeply, to listen more actively and empathically, and really touch other people's hearts. And so I think I would be really thinking about my skills and the skills of others. I would be grateful for those skills. And at the end of the day, love and compassion, to my mind, defines the essence of a life well lived. And so I would be tapping into those resources of love and compassion much earlier.
Wow, I really hear about the getting in touch earlier on with your unique skills and also that love and compassion. And as you were speaking, you just reminded me, while I was doing the research before you came on the show, I noticed that you were born in October as well, and you were also a Libran. And I thought, oh my God, no wonder I feel such compassion and love from you, because that star sign, and of course you're a lawyer to begin with, is very much about that scales of justice and empowering people and being very passionate in that space. Yvonne, it's been such an absolute honour and privilege to have you on the show today.
I should tell you one other thing, Michele, to make you smile. I was actually born on the same day as Gandhi.
Oh, wow, even more so, even more channeling that fabulous, making a profound difference in the world energy. And I'm so sorry about the passing of your mother, but I'm also so grateful that it's led to you doing so much and being such an advocate in that palliative, that well-needed advocacy space for the palliative care programs.
Thank you so much, Michele. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Thank you, Yvonne. And to everybody that's been viewing today, I know that we've probably gone down a few more what could be triggering or difficult conversations for people. So if you do need help, then please do reach out to Beyond Blue and some of the other Lifeline, other calls that you can make to get support if you need it. And if you are going through some difficult times of your own palliative journey, then please do reach out to Yvonne and find out about those deaf cafes and more about Palliative Care Australia. But for now, thank you for tuning in again to another incredible show. And from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.